year, I follow InfoSec Twitter, and for a couple of years, Tanya kept showing up as someone that people that I follow, you know, they've liked her posts or commented on. I was never following Tanya until about, I think it was actually February of this year, if I remember correctly. And she had a post about yelling.
Yeah.
And she talked about being in a hardcore band, and so that, you know, she could scream if necessary. The point of the post was not to be screaming at people, right? But I interacted with her and I said, hey, are we talking about hardcore punk? And she said, yes. And I was like, oh man, I'm into punk rock too. So Tanya, I got a quick question for you. Lagwagon, were you into Lagwagon? Or
Yes.
are you still into Lagwagon? Okay, did you celebrate Lagwagon Day on May 16th?
I did not know they have their own day. I was not a huge Lagwagon fan, but I had them on like a ton of my Punkorama and various other mixtapes and CDs that I had.
Gotcha. That's cool. They have a song called May 16th, and so it's like an unofficial Lagwagon Day on May 16th. So I
had no idea. You could just declare your own day. Man.
Yeah, yes, and just listen to punk rock all day long. I mean, specifically Lagwagon, or maybe bands on Fat Records or something. But
yes, I have many copies of Survival of the Fattest, etc.
Oh, yeah.
All the different like playlists they put together. Yeah, way back in the day.
Way back in the day. That's awesome.
Well, Tanya, I've got a ton of stuff that I could say about you, but you've done some really amazing things over the years, all centering around this color purple. I won't make you dive too much into that, but it is the best color of all. I'm really curious. Well, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself instead of me talk about you. But wow, best-selling author, coding, and working in IT. You've had quite an illustrious career. I'm so thankful you could join us today and give us this keynote. How did you get into cybersecurity?
I was a software developer for a really long time, and there was an ethical hacker in my office, and so he would do pen tests occasionally, and he was in a band and I was in a band. So we sort of chatted sometimes, and one day I walked up to him and I said, so my band wrote this song called Mandatory Dance Party, and we want to make a mobile app where if two people both have it installed and they get close to each other, it'll be like beep, 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 mandatory dance party, and it'll play our song, and then they have to have a dance party. And then based on how much the phone moves, we can figure out who wins. And then at the end of the song, it's like, this one's the winner. Continue on in your day. And then that's it. And he's like, yeah, I want to help. That sounds awesome. And then we became friends. And then eventually, after a few years, he kept asking me and asking me and asking me to join InfoSec and be his apprentice. And I was like, oh, give it a try. We'll see how it goes. I don't know, software development's pretty awesome, but it turned out I did like it. And then I discovered AppSec rather than just pen testing was the thing that was best for me, because you kind of get to hang out with software developers all day. And it's more kind of like social than pen testing. I found pen testing a bit lonely. Like, not that it's just, if you're really extroverted, it's not the right job for me, even though I did it for a while and I still liked blowing things up.
It is best done in groups, at least pairs, but yes.
Yeah.
Understood. Well, awesome. Let's let you get off and take it away. You've got a lot of great stuff to share, and we'll chat a little bit afterwards.
Awesome. So I have 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Go.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Tanya, and I'm a giant nerd, as previously discussed. And I want to talk about how to build secure software like a boss. And so the like a boss is sort of like old slang because I'm silly. But my obsession is how to make software more secure. And so let me tell you what this talk's going to be about. So I like telling people what I'm going to tell them. And then I tell them that's the talk. And then at the end, there's a conclusion because I tell you what I told you. And the reason for that is that I want you to remember certain things. So we're going to talk about how insecure apps are a big problem. They really are. It's costing millions and millions, if not billions of dollars each year of problems. Data leaks hurt people, data breaches, and there's just so much more. I'm going to talk about what you, specifically you, the audience person right now, need to secure your applications. I'm going to talk about a secure system development lifecycle. So I'm going to talk about that a fair bit. So the SDLC is how people, software developers every day, make software. And there's a couple different models, but we can still add security to any model that there is. And then I'm going to talk about what you specifically, the audience member right now, can do immediately. There's a bunch of things that you can do, and there's choices so that you can figure out which one's best for you, which one seems like the most fun, or which one you're allowed to do, because some offices will be like, no way. And then a bunch of resources. So I always end all my talk with resources. And basically, I made all of the courses that I created for my company free recently. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff, but that's the biggest one. So who am I? So I am a giant nerd. I'm the Director of Developer Relations and Community at Bright. I founded SheHacksPurple. I wrote a book. I'm an advisor. I am a nerd at large on the internet. And I do the About Me slide to try to show off, to be like, please stay for the whole talk. I'm competent, I promise, despite the fact that I'm incredibly silly. Okay, so let's do this. So I want to tell you a bit about the current state of affairs, because I find a lot of people are on a different page in regard to each different thing. And I want to make sure we're all talking the same language. And so this is going to be a review for a bunch of you, but some of you, you might be like, oh, I didn't know it was that bad, or oh, I didn't know we could do it like this. So, so you've been hacked is a thing I hear quite a bit, and the grammar bugs me, but the number one cause of data breach, according to the Verizon breach report, every year for many, many, many years, is insecure web applications and web APIs. It's not phishing, it's not point of sale, it's just data breaches, which is the worst type of security incident, is caused. Number one cause every single year is insecure web applications. And if you look at the numbers that they present, a quarter of all security incidents are caused by software vulnerabilities. But if you look at your company and you looked at the budget for security, 25% of it would not be going to software. That's very rare. Usually it's mostly like firewalls, like enterprise security, network security, cloud security, etc. And then for some reason, application security or software security is just like the lowest on the list. And they're like, the devs will handle it. And it's like, well, clearly they're not. So we need to help them. We need to pitch in with them to get this done. And so I feel that so this has improved a lot since I started giving talks. When I first started, almost no companies had any part of their team or any employee looking at the software of security, but now it's starting to expand, it's starting to improve, which is awesome. But most software or most security teams concentrate mostly on the perimeter, and by that I mean firewalls, networks, and infrastructure. They work really hard on patch management, and lots of vendor supplied solutions kind of take up all of their day. And a lot of security teams have no experience building software or very little, and they certainly don't know how to do a secure system development lifecycle. And so then you have software developers. Like, I went to school in the 90s, I graduated in 2000. That was 22 years ago. I assure you there was nothing about security then. And so we're counting on people who still today, most of them don't get taught anything about security. They get graduated, and we're just like, I hope they do a good job. It's not like our whole business depends on it. And it's a little bit like locking your front door and having a whole bunch of locks on your front door, but then you leave a window open on your first floor at the back of the building. It's like, so what the heck am I talking about when I say application security? So it's any and every activity that you perform to ensure your software is secure. Who said that? I said that. So I used to just have that on the screen, and people were like, you should make it a quote. I'm like, but who said it? They're like, you did. And I thought it was silly. But the point is if you are doing a secure code review, if you're hiring someone to come in and do a pen test, that's AppSec. But AppSec can also be a software developer listening to a podcast, hearing about, oh, well, I heard there's this new vulnerability that's being exploited in the wild, and it has to do with our framework, and I need to see if we have that version because I'm really worried, and coming in and checking at work. And if it is a problem, saying something and doing something. And it's like, Any of those things can be part of AppSec. It's you helping to fight the good fight to make all the software more secure. So another thing that I still see, unfortunately, so almost all the jobs in AppSec are penetration testing. And it's because a lot of companies are like, well, we'll just hire someone at the end to check everything. And so when I was a pen tester, so I would love to tell you how I was like super the best pen tester ever. I was like so amazing. That's not true. I only did it for 1.5 years before I switched to AppSec. And I would find tons of things wrong. And it wasn't because I was the best ever, it's because no one had ever looked before me. And no one had given any help to the software developers, no advice, no guidance, no, they gave them no tools, like no testing tools, no analysis tools, no training, nothing. And then I would come in at the very end and it'd be like shooting fish in a barrel. And I'd love to tell you again that I'm like the best badass pen tester, but I was not. I had just barely started. And this is the most expensive way to do application security. And it's not very productive either. So like, do I think pen tests are important? Yes. Do I think it should come at the end? Yes. Do I think it's the first thing we should do? No, it's at the end. We need to start way earlier. We need to help them the whole way through. And so I see this a lot. I see a lot of companies just burning tons of money this way. Okay, so this is the mandate of every IT security team, is to protect the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability, the CIA, of the applications or systems and all the data that your company creates and maintains. That's our job. Like every single thing, like every single piece of software, whether you make the software, you install the software, whether like any of those things, that's what our job is, to protect the CIA. And when I show this to software developers, I'm like, who's seen this before? Who's heard of this before? They'll be like, one dude at the back. It's like, I kind of heard about it once in a meeting. IT security folks, we are not awesome at marketing. We are amazing at keeping secrets, and we're not amazing at like spreading the good word of security. Okay, so the last thing that I'm gonna say that is part of this like kind of build up is, what is shifting left or pushing left? So I will say pushing left because many places I worked, I wasn't invited to start security earlier. So I had to push for it and I had to ask for it. And I had to be really, really pushy about it. And so shifting left means starting security earlier in the system development lifecycle. So right at the beginning. So if you imagine the system development lifecycle written out on a piece of paper, the further left you go, see how it's going towards the left? That means you're earlier, because that's the way English people write. We write from left to right. And so if we start with security advice in the requirements phase, we give them security requirements. If we analyze their design with them, we do threat modeling, we apply secure design concepts during the design phase, during the code phase. There's so many things we can do, and I'm going to get into a whole bunch of them. But if we just do pen testing right before the release, right before the pink part, like, why are we starting so late? What were we doing that whole time when we could have been helping them? And so pushing left means security wants to be invited to the party earlier, as soon as possible. We want to be at the party at the very beginning, and we want to stay until the end. So at this point, I hope that you're thinking like, how do we build secure software like a boss? How do we do that? And my answer is that you follow a secure system development lifecycle. Sometimes people call this an AppSec program. So an AppSec program can be a whole bunch of things, but an AppSec program always involves a secure system development lifecycle. And what it is us adding security steps throughout the SDLC. So it's the formalization, like making it official that security activities are going to happen every single time in each part of the SDLC. And so sometimes this is known as an AppSec program. So I'm going to go through the 5 phases of the SDLC and talk about things we can add and how we can make it better. And here's the thing, is that if you are doing waterfall, if you're doing agile, if you're doing DevOps, you still need requirements. You still need to know what you're building, and you still need to design it, and you still need to code it. You're just doing it in smaller increments. And so this means we just change the size or way that we do each one of these steps, but you still have to do all of them. And so let's look at security requirements to start. So this person is quite excited. So this is all the way at the left. This is the very, very, very first one. And basically, I believe when you start a requirements document for a project, that you should always add in security requirements. So let's say you're making a web app. So the next page, I'm going to have a list of web app requirements. If you're making an API, I'm going to have slightly different requirements. Let's say you're making something that doesn't go on the web. I want to have security requirements for that too. And so when you're giving this list of things that the devs know they have to build in, if you build security in from the start, 2 thumbs up, would recommend to friends. Trust me, it really helps. So this is a list of requirements. I'm not going to read them out to you. It's very long. But this is a generic list that we give away with SheHacksPurple all the time. But the idea is that you could start with a very generic list, and then you keep adding and adding and adding and adding things until it's perfect for your organization. And so the next step in the SDLC is secure design. And so if we're going to do a design phase, let's make sure it's secure. And so there's a bunch of different things that you can do. This guy looks really happy. That's why I chose this. So first of all, we could design, like we could do a whiteboarding session. So I ask you like, oh, okay, so you have like a front end, that's cool. So then you have a bunch of microservices at the back that are web APIs, cool. Like, where are those? Oh, do those go through an API gateway? No, they don't. Okay, they're just exposed to the internet. That's cool. How can we make sure they're safe? Blah, blah, blah. And you just like actually just draw it out on a whiteboard and you just talk about it. And then I'm like, I want you to add this here. I want you to add that there. And it would be really cool if this did this. And then they're just designing it so that they could do it right then. It's really hard to redesign stuff later. It's very expensive, but doing it at the start is easy. You could follow secure design concepts. That's a thing that I teach all the time and I have a talk about. And it's just, these are really common design security things that you could just add, like least privilege or ensuring that the security you've added is actually usable. And one of the most fun ones, threat modeling, which is brainstorming, but evil. And so you have a security person, you have a business representative, so that could be the product owner, and then you have a technical member of the dev team. And so that could be a software architect, it could be the lead dev, doesn't matter. There's someone that knows the app inside and out, and you brainstorm what could go wrong, and then you figure out how you can make sure it does not happen. And secure design. So I said secure coding standards. I feel like the secure coding standards should go in the coding section. Gotta correct that. But giving them the standard and guideline and teaching it to them so that they just write more secure code from the start because they know how to do it. And then security reference materials. So let's say you're like, we're gonna build a serverless app. I'm like, that's awesome. Here's some information and guidance that I'd like to give you about how to do that more safely. And especially training. Training's super important. I realized that like I run a training company, but we got acquired, so I don't have to sell training anymore. All my training's free. I still think it's the absolute most important thing you can do. And so even though all the training's free now, I still believe that if we are not gonna, that we aren't gonna get what we want as often if we are training everyone on how to do their jobs securely. And this doesn't mean just software developers. I mean like help desk, sysadmin, operations folks, all those people, when we train them to do their jobs securely, we get more of what we want, which means less security incidents and breaches. So secure coding. I love trees, this picture is beautiful. So in the coding phase, we want to do secure coding. So we follow the secure coding best practices. Ideally, you've given them a standard or a guideline to tell them what you actually expect. Don't just be like, practice secure coding. That's like saying, don't make any mistakes. That's not clear. Instead, teach them what you want, give them guidance, give them documentation. I'm a big fan of, if you're gonna make unit tests, also make security unit tests. So you test that it can handle bad input. You test that it is graceful when it fails. There's all sorts of ways you can do this yourself. There's automation for this, but basically then every time you check in your code, it runs all those little unit tests and it makes sure, so the unit test your dev wrote is like, it makes sure it works properly. And then the security test makes sure it does not work improperly. Code review. So let's say you're gonna check code You're going to do a code review on every pull request of new code. Teach that person how to review for security, so they look for secure code. Secure coding training or education, a secure coding library, which means templates that have already been tested for security, and everyone reuses those known good samples. There's really, really cool IDE plugins. So an IDE is the thing the programmer programs in all day, and basically you can do like a spell checker for code and all sorts of other cool things to help you verify if there are security problems. So SAST is static application security testing. So you can have a plugin for that will basically tell you, like, I think you've made this coding mistake. Please do this instead. Software composition analysis, which will tell you, hey, I think that library that you installed is ancient and it has lots of vulnerabilities, and I suggest you update to this version. This version's safe. And third, linting. So linting is like the grammar police for your code. It's about quality and about security. And linting, especially with APIs, is very important to make sure that it's formatted correctly so all the automated tools can read it. So some people are less excited about linters, but I think linters are great. I just also think my spell checker is great because it makes it look like I have perfect spelling when in fact, sometimes I make errors. And so then in the testing phase, you want to do security testing. And the first one, and the one that everyone probably knows about the most, because in movies, we see hackers, the thing that they use the most often is a DAS, a dynamic application security testing tool, sometimes called a web app scanner, sometimes called a web proxy, sometimes called pew, 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 pew. But basically it interacts with your web application and then tells you about all the vulnerabilities it thinks are in there. And it finds lots of things wrong very quickly. Static application security testing, you can do this again. So you can have a security professional do this in the testing phase, or you can have it done by the developers in the dev phase or the coding phase. You could do it both with different tools. There's a lot of options, but it analyzes the code that your team wrote. Software composition analysis, or SCA, this looks at basically all the code your team didn't write. So libraries, NuGet packages, third-party components, Ruby gems, all the stuff that your team did not write. It compares it against a list of known bad stuff that they worked very hard on. And it just tells you, like, hey, that NuGet package, bad news, like don't use it at all. Or usually it's like upgrade to this version where they fix those bugs. Security unit tests again. Every time you're checking in code for a bug that you fixed, you should be running all your unit tests again, including your security unit tests, so that you make sure you don't introduce new bugs when you fix an old bug. Code review again, linting again, and then the most famous one from everywhere, penetration testing. Like a lot of people tell me, they're like, I saw the movie Hackers and then I wanted to get into security, and I'm like, awesome. This should be your most exciting page of my entire presentation. So deploy, release, and maintain phase. So this is the final phase of the SDLC. And in that phase, you want to do security testing in your CI/CD. So if you're releasing your software using an automated system, sometimes called a DevOps pipeline or a CI/CD pipeline, you can add security testing, like all the testing we talked about. You want to probably condense it and tune it and make sure it's going as fast as possible. You don't want to be running 18 hours. No one will want to hang out with you later because that is annoying. You want to make sure you're going fast and you're being accurate in a CI/CD pipeline, but it can be done. You want to make sure you're doing logging, monitoring, and alerting when it is out in prod. Just because you've released it does not mean your responsibility is over. And I continue to do security testing because, like, software doesn't age well. It doesn't age like wine. It ages like cheese in the sun. More advanced stuff. So you could create a coordinated disclosure program so that if someone finds something wrong with your software, they know how to report it to you. You could do a bug bounty program, inviting like security researchers from all over the planet to look at a copy of your application and find even more bugs for you, and then you pay them whenever they find something. Red teaming. So this means having a team of pen testers attack your production systems and then tell you what they found so that you can make your production systems even more secure. And that is a secure SDLC, but I'm hoping that you're thinking right now, like, what can I do? How can I make my software more secure? And the first one is you could test your code. And so this is how I started And honestly, when I run a DAST, I still feel a little pew, 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 pew. So anyone is not hard can use a dynamic application security testing tool, or DAST for short. So security folks call it DAST. Software developers will say, you know, that web app scanner thing? That's what I used to call it. Can you use your scanner? Just tell me what's wrong. It automates tests for you. It'll tell you what it found and how you should fix those things. There's paid ones, there's free ones. But a very important part is do not use a dynamic scanner on an app unless you have permission in writing to test it. So do not point this at Walmart.com. That will not end well for you. Only test things that you have permission to test, and make sure that you have like done some training on that product so that you don't blow stuff up at work, or do it on your own home computer and build a little lab, like run a little container or virtual machine with a known vulnerable app and be like, pew, 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 and learn about it that way before you do it at work. And not all DASTs are safe. I have made a mess with some of them before. Some of them are safer than others, but have a backup of your data just in case. That is important. The next one that you could start right away is threat modeling. So I was not as good at this when I started as I am now because I was a software developer. As a software developer, it was my job to make everything work and make my clients happy. And it took me a while. My mentor used to say, take off your developer hat and put on your hacker hat. And I would look at it and think, how can I make it do what it should not do? And so threat modeling a system is a brainstorming session. And every time you do it, you will flex that muscle until stronger, stronger, and stronger. So you figure out negative use cases, sometimes called abuse cases, and then how to defend against them. It's literally a brainstorming session. It can be super, super fun. And you're trying to figure out what could go wrong. Then you search your code. When you do code review, you look for this. When you do testing, you look for these threats. You can think like an adversary and find vulnerabilities, but seriously, it's really fun. I know that sounds silly, but like I remember going to the movies and being like, I could have gotten free because they never checked this. Or you could just stay late after the movie and then you could just go see another. And like all of a sudden I saw all these possibilities and flaws in security. Like everywhere I go now, I can't stop seeing it. I'm like, I have to tell you, there's something wrong with your security. And so once you start thinking like this, you'll just start seeing flaws everywhere and fixing them. You could review your code. So if it's your job to write code, you could review code. Look, she has a whole bunch of people helping her review her code. Yeah, that wouldn't be intimidating, having 4 people standing over your shoulder. So most people use a static application security testing tool and manual analysis. So you start looking for things because if you've taken secure coding training, you start knowing what to look for. And then a SaaS tool can look in a way that computers look, like they can look at recursion and symbolic analysis, etc., and see even more problems. You want to make sure you check out your libraries. So we do software composition analysis, SCA, to make sure that all the plugins and third-party components are safe to use. Manual code review. So someone's checking in some code, you're like, cool, I'm just going to take a quick look. Search for your threat models, like we said in the last one. You can find more than just security bugs. I ran one of these tools. Well, I hired a really smart consultant to run one of these tools. It was the first exposure I had to SaaS. And we had this app where we had to run it on a 32 kilobit in the Arctic, because I'm Canadian, and people in the Arctic still need to vote. And we were creating a system that helped figure out, that you can vote. And we found 22 memory leaks in our app. And we fixed all of them thanks to the SaaS tool. So it helps with quality of your application and security. Security is a part of quality, right? And so you can find way more than just security bugs by doing this. And so this last one, writing better code. And I want to note that I am not being condescending when I say this. Well, you could just write better code. That's rude. What I mean is that when you see a professional athlete on TV, they're done practice, so many Cheetos. They don't go drink 100 beers. That's not what they're doing. They're watching videos of themselves to improve themselves. They're trying new diets or new supplements so they can get better. They're asking advice. They're doing physio. They're constantly honing their craft so that they can be the absolute best at what they do. And you can do that with code. So how can we write better code? So you can train yourself on secure coding practices. So my secure coding course is free now in the SheHacksPurple community. It's free. There's no upsell. There's no then we nag you. There's nothing. It's just free. There are many quality online sources. Some are paid and some are free. There are a lot of different professionals I know that create secure coding courses that are awesome. There's security architecture, there's threat modeling, there's security in Kubernetes, like there's everything under the sun. And there's a lot of things that are free. I had to train myself mostly for free because I'm from Canada and our dollar is worth very little compared to the American dollar. And I worked for the government and our training budgets were itty bitty bitty. And so I had to like do a lot of thrifty stuff so that I could learn, and you can too. When you look for how to do something, so like when you go to Stack Overflow 400 times per day, instead of picking the thing at the top, which will be the least secure way to do something, look for the most secure way to do the thing. And Stack Overflow has a secure area now of like how to do this securely. Look there instead. Instead of 30 seconds, spend a minute and a half or 2 minutes looking for the most secure way to connect to a database, the most secure way to do whatever it is that you're trying to do, and your code quality will go straight up. You can become the security expert on your team, and you can be that person that always knows the answer, that person that always helps. And each new problem you solve, you're just building that muscle inside your brain of AppSec. And like, I was not awesome at it when I started. I did all the things that I tell devs not to do now. And I have learned and learned and learned, and I'm sharing it with you. And you can be just like that. You can be exactly like me, and you can be on a dev team and be like, yeah, actually, I had to fix something like that last month. Can I show you my code? Or can I tell you how I did that? Or do you want me to help you? And you can become a security champion. And so what did we learn today? We learned insecure software is a really big problem, and we need to take it seriously. We learned that pushing or shifting left means starting security earlier, ideally right at the beginning of the system development lifecycle. And we learned that secure system development lifecycles reliably, every single time, will release more secure software. And if you just take home these 3 concepts, like we need to take software security seriously, we want to start it right at the beginning of the system development lifecycle, and that if we do security steps throughout that whole process, we will build better software that is safe for our customers, our employees, or our citizens. And yeah, I'm hoping that this message goes home with you, and especially goes to work with you. And with that, I want to give you some free resources. So the books are not free, but the rest of the things are free. Books cost money, sorry. So first, I have a podcast. So it's called the SheHacksPurple podcast, and we release it on YouTube and then all the podcast platforms. And basically it offers short security lessons and best practices this season. Last season, it was all about all the different types of jobs in information security. And so we just released a new one with this lady named Nicole Dove. Before that was Sharif Mansour. We have all these famous people on, and they teach us a little lesson. These are awesome books, including my book. I feel like we can't do security right if we aren't doing IT right. And in my opinion, if we want to build really awesome software, DevOps is the way. So these first 4 books in yellow are all books about how to do DevOps. And there's parts about security, but it's not a security book, it's a DevOps book. And then the last book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, I wrote it. And not only do I think that book is awesome, but so does my mom, and you might too. I'd like to invite you to join the community. So all of the SheHacksPurple courses are now free in the community as of our acquisition. Thank you, Bright. And so go to community.shehackspurple.com, make an account, we'll approve you within a day, and basically you could just start taking courses for free. You can meet lots of awesome other human beings who are in there. You can come to our events, you can come hang out, you can write your first blog article, you can give your first presentation. This is a place where we're hoping people feel that they can be comfortable and supported. Every Monday on Twitter, I use this hashtag Cyber Mentoring Monday, and it's Wednesday, so you missed it this week, but don't worry, we'll do it next week. And basically, I want to help people connect with professional mentors, because my first professional mentor taught me some things, but that led me to meet a whole bunch of other people who became my other professional mentors. And as my career has progressed and progressed and progressed, I've called upon these people to help me. And it has been amazing. And I've been able to go significantly further with their advice. And so I wanted to help everyone find a mentor. So you can check this hashtag out. And when you're ready, put a call out and ask for help. And the last resource is me. So I am a giant nerd on the internet. I have a blog, I have a YouTube channel, I have a newsletter, I have a Twitter account. Theoretically, I have a Facebook account, but I hate Facebook. So if you go there, you'll talk to my intern. But that said, all these places I'll actually be. And with that, I would like to thank you so very much for your attention and your time today. Thank you to GRIMMCon for having me, and thank you to GRIMMCon for putting on this entire conference for free, because you as the person attending have no idea how much work that they have put into making this a reality. And so my hat's off to the conference organizers. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Tanya. Wow, that was incredible. I jotted a ton of notes. Good stuff. Clearly the voice of experience, especially tempered by QQ. I love QQ. That's great.
Thank you.
But specifically getting permission in writing stuck out to me. I've heard so many horror stories about that, including people who should have get a pass and not getting a pass and spending years in prison for such things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thanks for a great talk. You covered like the full spectrum. There was something for everyone in this talk. There was like, if the world did what you just described, that would make my job a lot harder and my company a lot less successful, which I know you can relate to.
Yes, I definitely can.
I love your emphasis on mentors. There's so much information out there, but a mentor relationship can make it so much easier to chew on and even know what materials are important for this particular thing I'm trying for. And yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Tanya, stick around for a moment, if you don't mind. So you had a lot of great quotes that people were pasting in the Discord. The one about cheese stands out. Cheese in the sun. But there are a number of other things. So I wanted to thank you for that. There was one question that came in on the Discord here.
Okay.
So they said they asked, Tanya, you said you did pen testing for a year and a half. Can you talk more about this? If this was a quick / natural change, both into and out of?
So it took me about a year and a half to be able to switch from being a software developer to moving into a full-time pen tester role. So I was already learning about security a bit. And then I decided, my professional mentor was like, you're going to be a pen tester. You're going to be great. And I spent a year and a half studying and taking courses. I started speaking at conferences around then, specifically because I wanted to be able to get in free because I had no budget. And so I discovered if you speak at the conference, they'll let you in free and you can just learn for free. And I'm like, joke's on you, I got in for free. And it didn't occur to me that I did a zillion hours of work preparing that talk. But for me, it was great. And I also joined OWASP and started running the OWASP community. And I just started inviting people that would teach me the things that I needed to know to be speakers. And so I took a long time and a lot of effort, and my professional mentor would get me to do this and get me to do that and practice this and do these things. And I was working full time as leading a software development team at that point, writing all the software, leading the team that wrote the software. I wasn't really writing that much at that point. And then one day the security team where I was working said, well, we're going to hire someone for security. It could be you. So I ended up working on that team doing AppSec and sort of pen testing and sort of flittering around. I ended up being the CISO for a few months and running the security for the entire election across Canada in 2015. And then my mentor said, do you want to be a manager or do you want to be a pen tester and do technical work? And I was like, I want to do technical work. So I stepped down into the pen tester role at a new organization. And I did pen testing for a year and a half. And I was like, this is a dumpster fire. And I basically, I was learning more and more about AppSec, so I just kept doing it at work, and it made my boss crazy. He's like, Tanya, why are you spending so long? And I'm like, well, the client approved all these extra days, and he's like, why are you visiting them 4 months before their pen test? I'm like, oh, I scanned all their infrastructure and gave them a list of patching to do, and I scanned what they had for their app, and I threat modeled it, and he's like, you don't have time for that crap. I'm like, they're willing to pay more. And he's just like, why can't you just go do the test and leave? And I made him really annoyed because I felt like I couldn't leave. I was like, I have to help you fix this. And I found it really distressing. And it's hard to be a consultant rather than an employee. If you've been an employee your whole life, where you see the from the very beginning until the very end of the project, and just coming in and being like, pew, 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 it's broken, fix this, and leaving was really hard for me. And so then someone said, well, what if you come over here and you get to do the entire life cycle with us, and you get to know all the devs and like be just there for our devs all the time? Because switching companies all like every week, it'd be a new company doing a pen test. I don't know, it felt lonely, and it felt like, for me as a super extrovert, I know regular people are fine with that. But I really like the idea of investing and seeing it from the beginning until the end. And so basically one day someone's like, you keep doing AppSec, that's what the problem is. You're not doing pen testing, Tanya. You're trying to do the whole life cycle. You're gonna get fired. So I worked somewhere where that's what they wanted. And it went, oh, I was a lot better there.
Yeah.
And my boss was less frustrated with me, which is good.
No doubt.
But it was hard. It wasn't a smooth process. And I had to do a lot of work for free to get attention. So to get the pen testing job, I did an entire pen test for them. And he was still like, no, I don't think you have enough experience. So then I remediated. I patched all the servers. I fixed the app so it was secure. And he was still like, I don't know. And then my professional mentors, they were trying to hire him. And he said, I won't come unless Tanya comes. And he like said he would refuse the contract. And so they finally agreed to bring me on. And so most professional mentors don't put themselves out there like that. That was a really unique situation that I'm very grateful for. But yeah, and then I totally ticked off the boss, spending way too long on every contract. But people would pay for the extra time, to be clear. But yeah.
Well, and this is such a, even this many years in, hacking and pen testing and AppSec are still so new, and especially so new to the people doing them, that there's a lot of things you got to sort out like that. You've got to have those bossy conversations about, they're paying us for 2 weeks and you're giving them 4. Let's talk how to make that a reality. Let's make this right.
Well, I would just quote more days. I'd be like, I need 14 days. And they're like, that guy can do it in 10 days. I'm like, well, that guy's senior and I'm junior. And then, yeah, they would just go along with it. I mean, I tell them what I was going to do and they'd say, that sounds good. But when you are planning a pen test and you're planning out the scope, most clients have no idea. They're like, sure, you're the expert. I guess that's right. And I mean, other pen testers are like, why are you doing threat modeling? They told me you like whiteboarded their whole app and helped them redesign it. What are you doing, Tanya? That's not your job. And I was like, but they need that.
They do. That's right. Yeah. And it's where business can get in the way of getting business done, where it's all a people problem, right? And people happen to be they're the majority of the solution. So the relationship can solve these problems, whereas business needs the rigidity factor of, well, they agreed to pay us this much and we agree to do this much, when really working together we can do so much more. I know that I pushed really hard with Grim Sci-Fi. I was fortunate enough to be able to start the Sci-Fi team here at Grim, and with all of my engagements I was always trying to push for, well, let's talk about relationship, let's talk about us partnering with you. This is not a transactional thing where you pay us, we do this work, and then we're gone. But really, we want to help you understand what's best, what's next. So we're trying to work that out, trying to wrap all that together in a businessy package that actually makes people money too. It's so hard.
Yeah.
So I got one last question, and then we got to wrap up and make room for Al to take over here in about 3 minutes. As I said, you've got a full spectrum talk, something for everybody, developers, security engineers, all the way up to management. Like management would benefit from this. How would you recommend developers and security engineers engage other people in their organization with your materials and the concepts that you put here in the talk?
So I So not this talk, but a talk similar to this talk, and then another talk about DevSecOps. I open sourced them. So if you go to my GitHub, so if you go to github.com/SheHacksPurple and go to TTT, so train the trainer, I have 2 talks of mine that I've given like probably 60, 70 times each. And basically I give you the slides. I give you like a slide to introduce yourself. I give you a description, and then I give you a video of me doing it, and then I give you a video of how you can do it. So it's like, on this slide, we want to convey this. Like, here's a story you could tell, or here's a question you might get. And I walk you through the presentation so that you can give it. And so then lots of people have told me they've given those presentations at work, especially AppSec people or pen testers, because they're like, I want to give a presentation, but I don't have one. It's hard to make a presentation. I'm like, just give mine. It's free. The license is just open for anyone to do whatever they want with it. And some people have told me they've spoken at meetups or at conferences with my talks, and I'm like, yes, you are getting the word out there to everyone.
Nice.
So I would suggest
GitHub,
starting with that.
SheHacksPurple, TTT.
SheHacksPurple. SheHacksPurple. Awesome. And then
I'm gonna
TTT.
give the screen over to Elle so she can start getting ready. Tanya, thank you so very much. You've kicked us off in just the right way. Appreciate you. Appreciate the work that went into this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.